Welcome to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, where we discuss all things political, bringing you the top stories locally, nationally, and from around the world. I'm Ruben Abati, and This Day Live begins now. This is live, and I'd like to welcome today's panelists, Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough, Chike Ogea, former Commissioner of Information, Delta State in Nigeria, and Professor Bola Akintenewa, Director General, Bolitech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this edition of This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show. We begin with the latest situation report of the spread of coronavirus pandemic in Nigeria. On Saturday, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control confirmed 87 new cases, 27 less than the figure for Friday. This has brought the national tally in Nigeria to 1,182 cases. The number of cases discharged increased from 208 to 222. And the number of deaths increased from 32 to 35. The 87 new cases confirmed on Saturday were from 9 states. Lagos remains the epicenter with 33 new cases. There were 18 new cases in BORNO, 12 new cases in OSUN, bringing the tally to 32 in the state, 9 in KATSINA, 4 each in KANO and EKITI states, 3 each in EDO and Bauchi states, with only 1 case in Imo. To date, there have been 689 cases in Lagos, 138 in the Federal Capital Territory, and 77 in Kano. Ogun remains at 35, while Katsina now has 30 cases. Osun has 32 cases, while Edo has 22 cases. In Oyo State, 18 confirmed cases have been recorded. BORNO now has 30 cases, while Akwa Ibom and Kwara remain at 11 each. Kaduna has 10 cases, Bauchi has moved up to 11 cases, Ekiti 8, and Delta 6. Ondo, 4 cases, Rivers, 3. Abia, Enugu, Sokoto, Zamfara, Chigawa, and Niger are also unchanged at 2 cases each. Similarly, Adamawa, Anambra, Benue, and Plateau remain at 1 each. As at 25th April, Nigeria has recorded COVID-19 confirmed cases in 28 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Now, it looks, gentlemen and lady, I know, Yemi, you insist I should not say you are a gentleman, even if I insist that in journalism, there are only gentlemen. There are no ladies. Now, it seems to be getting worse. But out of all of these statistics that I've read out, the big problem is Kano. In Kano, we have been told that hundreds of persons have died in a number of days. The WHO and the Nigeria Center for Disease Control sent 17 experts to Kano to try to monitor the situation. And this number of deaths in Kano has been increasing. The health workers were told doctors and nurses have fled. There was no testing in Kano for about 2 days. Now, what exactly is going on? Does it look like the Nigerian government is not following the exact protocols? And do we see a situation whereby Kano will become the major epicenter for Nigeria, considering the population of Kano? Other states have been making an effort, but the governor of Kano himself seems to be totally helpless. Nobody is observing social distancing. Nobody is making any effort to be careful. Chike Ogea, I'll start with you. What should Nigeria do? Because it looks like, yeah, we make the right noise, but in some places we're dropping the ball. And Nigeria looks like it's dropping the ball in Kano.
Yeah, but we must situate the issues where they are. First, what I feel is that COVID has exposed everything about the Nigerian Federation. Yeah, you know, it's a pity. everything we've been shouting about for the past how many years? Conferences, sovereign conferences, constitutional conferences, restructuring, true federalism, everything, I think, is going to be taken care of by COVID-19. That is the funny thing. Because what has happened in KANO is that, of course, in the over-centralized system we work, where we think we can micromanage from Abuja, which is not possible, we now have a pandemic of such gargantuan proportion, and we have, fine, the NCDC, I think, have been doing a great job. You can see what the Lagos State Governor is doing. You can see what the Ogun State Governor is doing. So you can pick individuals here and there. But generally, overall, I don't feel that force of a national leadership driving us. And I think that is why the KANO governor can get so lost in what he's doing. The other time I heard him say he's going to put some Amajiris and send them back home.
And they did.
Where is home for Amajiris, for God's sake? Amajiris, are they from the south? Because I hear they say their parents are in Abia, in Imo, and all of that. You see, I pray this because we politicize everything in Nigeria, and that's the part of the problem we have. And this is a major pandemic we're looking at, like you rightly said, that can wipe us all out. That KANO scenario, I think, should be looked into very, very seriously. This is what the former emir had been shouting about all those years. You see, when it is time to use those people, when it's time to have that population as an advantage for elections, God bless you, then it's fine and everything. Now they have this pandemic, they cannot, I mean, the most important thing about, I keep saying it, you know, I've listened to this COVID thing over the weeks, I isolated, and I was just reading and listening until I got to a stage where I said, no, I can't even take anymore, right? But I think the most important thing I got from it are that the 3 T's are the most important thing. Testing, tracing, and treatment. So where along the line, whenever you drop the ball anywhere along those 3 T's, then you are in trouble, big trouble. And I can't even see any of them happening in KANO. So just like you said, KANO is a disaster waiting to happen. And if we don't quickly, I'm looking at the NCDC, that is where my hope lies. ECOWAS, please, whatever you can do, you know, there's nothing we have not even heard about KANO. We heard initially that no, nothing was happening in KANO, that it was because they wanted to get some of the money that had been allocated, that maybe some donor agencies or development partners, as we call them now, had given some money, and KANO was eyeing it. Are we still looking at money in the face of a pandemic like this? Then you want to ask, what kind of people are we? This is getting gory.
Well, Professor Bola Akintayo, I mean, you are not in the same studio with me. You are in another studio. I only have Chike and Yemi here with me because of the policy of social distancing that has been adopted by Arise News. But where you are, I'm sure you were listening to Chike Ogea. Now, the situation that we have found ourselves in Nigeria, in the last 3 days, the numbers have been increasing. What do you think is the problem? And many Nigerians have been saying they don't even believe in the idea of lockdown. And in KANO, we have had 180 persons plus dying within a space of 4 days. The molecular laboratory in KANO has been shut down. Now, what's the worst case scenario for Nigeria? And what do you think we should do to save the people of KANO who seem to be in serious dire straits? Hello, Professor Akintayo, did you get me?
Okay, I'm hearing you now.
Okay, I was asking you about the situation in KANO where people are just dying. Yes.
My reaction to your question and to the submission of Shike will be what I've been repeating. But for the opt-in's time, I am repeating that any individual who is not able to be honest with himself or herself will never be able to be honest with another person. In terms of political governance, in terms of COVID-19, in terms of the increase in number that we are talking about, We have a political governance that is largely predicated on self-deceit. We are never honest with ourselves in terms of political governance. And what I really mean by this is not far-fetched, very simple. Now, do we have any NCDC testing center in Kano? Does Kano state government believe in COVID-19? Why is it that the governor will now review the lockdown, give room for prayers? All right. In other words, we are dealing with competition between religion and national safety, national survival. Now some people, Christians, Muslims, they believe that God will deliver them from this COVID-19 pandemic. All right? But they do not look at the implications of people who are not Muslims, who are not Christians. And the major problem in this case is that the number that is increasing is as a result of disobedience. People do not believe in the lockdown. They will be arguing that, look, they want to eat, that they are daily paid, and they want to go and work, which is a good argument. All right? It's a good argument. You must provide food. But now, in an attempt to eat, in your quest to eat, you are infected, and you are infecting others. Where do we start? Where do we stop? I am submitting in a final conclusion on this particular point that, look, the only thing the federal government of Nigeria should do, and I talk about federal government in the sense of federalism that Chike had raised.
Okay, but we'll take a short break now. When we return, the Sunday talk show, This Day Live, will continue. Stay with us. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me in the studio, I have Chike Ugia, former Commissioner of Information, Delta State, and also Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Is Enough, and Professor Bola Akintenewa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy Studies. Yeah, Prof, I was with you when we went on that short break, and you were making a number of points about Nigeria and the management of the COVID-19 situation, particularly with regard to the situation, the current situation in Kano State, where people seem to be dropping dead just like that.
My submissions were to point to the statement that whenever you have an order and a counter order, the outcome cannot but be an encounter and disorder. So the situation in Kano is very disorderly. The number of COVID-19 is increasing. It should be expected. What would you expect? When, for instance, instruction is given by Muhammadu Buhari that to ensure that we are able to contain the spread of COVID-19, let everybody stay indoor. But nobody wants to comply with this. You have generally, especially in Kano, they are not respecting. Everybody is going out. Then, why would you not expect that one? What is the position of NCDC in Kano? I was trying to ask the question, because by that time, they do not even believe in the idea that there is anything like even COVID-19 until it has now deteriorated to a level whereby they are now crying. Why? So when she can raise the issue of federalism, I look at it from this angle to say, well, let every state be able to have the capacity to conduct and manage political affairs, public affairs, the way it sees it. Because at the end of the day, if they do not want to be tested, and others will want to be tested, then why wouldn't the people who are tested and who are fighting tooth and nail COVID-19, now be subjected to the whims and caprices of people who do not want. This is the issue. We cannot be managing the affairs of the country on the basis of some people refusing to go along with the directive from Muhammadu Buhari. Muhammadu Buhari is president of Nigeria, and he should ensure that Kano, Ondo, Abia, every state complies with that. This is a national emergency. So if we are factoring in federalism, in other words, autonomy, the right of the constitutive state of Nigeria to take some political decisions, it must be put in context. No state should seek security to the detriment of the interests of collective orders. This is the issue, and we need to address it. And I'm to suggest that, look, one, the government, the federal government, must put in place a special think tank that will have a multidisciplinary character, that will now investigate the post-COVID-19 era in terms of food security in the future. Because the major problem we are going to have now is that Kano, as a symbol, the whole north, they are the one producing more than 50–60% of the food being consumed in the south. If now the whole north will now be consumed by coronavirus, then the people in the south must expect the same consumption to be consumed, because there wouldn't be the agricultural products coming from the north. Which means now that a think tank, we need to sit down, look at it from a military strategic, political and economic, as well as socio-cultural, implications. The think tank should begin to look at it from now and look at what will happen after we might have found solution to COVID-19. And finally, there are many people in Nigeria, especially the traditional professionals, the traditional experts, everybody laying claim to have found a solution. I think this is the time to also have a conference, national conference of those people. Let's see our traditional capacity, homegrown capacity to deal with this, rather than always now talking about update, which no one is able to find solution to. I think this is where we should be looking at.
Okay, Prof, thank you. But Yemi, I will come to you now. Prof has raised a number of issues. The first one, which I would like you to respond to, is the point about lockdown. Now, many Nigerians have opinions about lockdown. By tomorrow, which is Monday, the federal government will need to take a decision whether to extend the lockdown in Ogun, Lagos, and the Federal Capital Territory. And there are some groups who have been saying, well, the lockdown is not working. We should look for African solutions and do something different, think out of the box. Now, he talked also about think tank. Now, I'm aware that the Anna Foundation think tank, led by Atedo Peterside, has made a number of suggestions. He talks about intelligent lockdown, okay? Now, about a different model that is not imitative, a model that can work for Nigeria. But can anything work for Nigeria, given the crisis that we have in Kano, which Professor Akintenewa also referred to? Health workers are running away. They stop testing because they don't have the facilities, they don't have the support. How bad is our situation? You run an agency called Enough is Enough. Are we at a point now where we can say enough is enough? And if we say enough is enough, how precarious can that be?
Starting point, I think we just need to be honest about where our starting point. Number one, we don't have sufficient medical personnel for the number of Nigerians that we have. So nobody should be surprised that NCDC is short-staffed, hospitals are short-staffed, and there are issues with personnel. We just don't have enough. A minister of the Federal Republic at some point said doctors should go and be tailors. Then at some point another, I think the labor minister said the health minister said we had enough doctors. Another one said some of them should go and be tailors. I know, for example, in Luth, in a 3-month period, they lost 6 respiratory technicians who went outside of the country. So the context of that will not change with COVID. It will just be made worse because you're putting more pressure on the system. Now, if you look at state governments, I think it's very instructive. Chike made the point about politicizing everything. The people we see at the front line, maybe except for Lagos, where we see Professor Abayomi, we see governors. It is not a political matter. The issue of this virus is a matter of science. It's a matter of biology. So it should be the commissioners of health in these various states that we see leading the conversation, leading the understanding of how the virus is moving through their state, what they're doing in terms of data and tracing, as you said, testing, tracing, and treatment. So that they're providing information from a knowledgeable point of view, not as a governor like Ganduje has shown us, who's, and I say this quite clearly, has been very incompetent in his handling of this matter. From first denying that nothing was happening, second denying that people were dying. Meanwhile, his commissioner did say, well, it's only 640 deaths. Now, it's not to say that all 640 was as a result of COVID, but there are some that probably are. There are some that are a function of health workers running away and not being in hospitals. Some private hospitals have been shut down based on this, so people don't have access to healthcare they would normally have. So in a situation like that, you need a chief executive of the state who understands the challenges, is involving his health commissioner, he's involving technical expertise, and there is a plan on how to engage this. But from the very beginning, people were very dismissive. I mean, we saw videos of people washing their hands and then drinking the water as a way of mocking this whole stay-at-home thing because they just didn't understand the gravity of it. And if your residents or your citizens in your state don't understand the gravity, and you, as a chief executive as well, don't understand the gravity and are not acting accordingly, then the crisis we have is to be expected. I don't see why anybody is surprised. And thirdly, I think I would like to give the state governors, and this is your point about restructuring, they started off really taking the lead because state governors were just either closing their borders or taking decisions because they wanted to protect their residents. Until President Buhari finally spoke and then talked about Lagos, Ogun, and Abuja. Now, as you said, we've done 4 weeks in those areas. We don't know yet. Now, so even if you're going to lift the lockdown, it's not, you just don't announce the day of that as of tomorrow. So as a government, again, we talked about this last week, leadership. Leadership is grossly lacking at the federal level and really in most of the states because the federal government is not providing a clear direction that this is what we understand. And to your point about intelligent lockdown is driven by data. Even Lagos that's trying in providing data from different local governments and how they're mapping, how they're tracing it. Lagos could probably do better, a lot better, in terms of using data to maybe lock down certain local governments because you know that it's spreading within these local governments and we need to contain it. But even if the states within the Southwest cannot control traffic within their states, people are still crossing borders, even though the state governors say they shouldn't, then it just tells you really that whatever it is that we need to do, whatever recommendations we throw out, and sounds good, if they're not enforced or we don't pick recommendations that we have the capacity to enforce and penalize accordingly, then it will just be a joke. I mean, the Ondo State was a police officer who left Lagos, ended up in Ondo, got tested, came back in Lagos, and now they found him again in Ondo. So if police officers are able to move that way, and people, there was a tweet from Temingiwa, who runs Life Bank last week, saying she's on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and people are just bribing their way to cross state borders. So if we're not enforcing whatever, recommendations, then we should not be surprised. And at this point, it's not just government. Nigerians also need to realize that we are putting our own lives at risk when we continue to disobey and do things because we feel we can get away with it.
Please, and before you ask me a question, Jemi said something instructive, which I want to nail something there. That police officer, like she said, came and got tested in Lagos and was positive. Found out to be positive and was supposed to be treated in Lagos and was waiting for them to come and take him. And they would not come. And that was why he ran back to Ondo to see whether he could get treatment there. So you see, these are the problems we have. We don't even, I've read so many cases of people who have called
and waiting.
And no help is coming. No. Yes, no help is coming. So you see, at every point of those 3 T's, as we spoke about, that I talked about, we seem to be dropping the ball.
Okay, but let's take a short commercial break now. When we return, this is live, the Sunday Talk Show. We'll continue. Don't go away. We'll be right back. It's a live the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me, I have in the studio Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Chiko Gia, former Commissioner of Information, Delta State, and Professor Bola Akintenewa, Director General, Bolitech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Now, Chike, I mean, you were the one talking before we took that short break.
I just finished the point.
Yes, you were responding to Yemi.
Yes.
But there are other issues that I would like you to respond to. The FIRS,
yes,
for example, has been quoted in the media today, saying that some businesses are doing well, and that those businesses in telecom, in, financial services, supermarkets, despite the fact that the FIRS, that's the Revenue Service of Nigeria, Internal Revenue Service of Nigeria, had said, well, you know, we're making some concessions, we're giving some concessions so that you don't feel the pressure of COVID-19. Now the same agency, they've not denied the story. They are now turning around and saying, oh, the agencies that are, the businesses that are working must pay their tax and that they are exempted. Do you think that this makes sense? And then, what do you think about the idea of the lockdown? I mean, I brought up the issue about the position of Soludo and also the ANA Foundation think tank, saying that, well, we should not do copy and paste.
That's right.
Maybe businesses should open. Two issues. What's your reaction?
Yes, let me start with the FIRS. We know it's a basic law of life. You know, I think there's a Yoruba saying to it. I don't know how it goes, this, because my Yoruba is not that good, but it basically means somebody's own. Somebody's own will not be good. Yeah, we know it until somebody knows it bad. So definitely there are two sides to it. Anybody that is giving services to people that are locked in, obviously will make money now. So I can understand the people data. You know, people in telecoms, all of this, everybody's on their phone now, fishing for information, looking, you know, so everything you're doing on the social media is times 20 now, that people, you know, because you have all that idle time in your hands. And people want to stay alive, so everybody's looking for that. Of course, multi-choice, you know, the TV people, to entertain families as well. So I can imagine all the younger children, Cartoon Network and all that, because, you know, they'll be sending mothers and fathers. I don't have children anymore, you know, but I can imagine what...
Young children.
Yeah, young children. They've gone, but, you know, they're all gone. So that kind of thing. So that is true. But now we must decide what we are doing. In foreign countries, other countries that obviously are more developed than us, they have a law or a rule for everything across board. Everybody at so and so time, maybe every 2 weeks or every week, you have a check. You receive it in your post box. A certain amount. Is it $2,000? Is it $1,500? In Canada, in America, in London? They are not saying because some people are working or some people should come and pay tax. No. Across board, you would liberalize whatever palliatives, though I don't really like that word, but well, you want to give to the people. Because we are in an emergency. This is an emergency. And until we get out of it, before you can start doing all of that. And then the second question you talked about was about lockdowns. Definitely, we cannot keep copying and pasting. It cannot be one solution suits all. Our circumstances, our social way of life, everything is different. For me, I laugh sometimes when we talk about this lockdown. Do you know for a vast majority of our people, locking them in is more danger to them than going out? Those of them that live, 10 of them in one room, have you been to those kind of dwellings? They're all over. Go to all these low income places, and then you see how some of our people live. Those ones that we know that are really living below the poverty line. And you're telling me that locking them in those spaces is what will give you the social distancing you're looking for? Let's get real. Well, so you see, we have to understand what it is we are doing. Just like you're saying, we have to be intelligent about it. And then don't forget, like they say, this hunger virus, could be more deadly than the coronavirus. Because when these people are locked in for too long and they are pushed to the wall, some of us have some reserves. We can still move a bit. Some supermarkets are...
You have reserves.
Yeah, so, we have food in the fridge. We have food to eat. There are stores we go to.
You're talking about cash reserves.
No, I'm talking about food. Cash, you see, don't you understand we're in a war situation? Cash is of no use to anybody now. You bring out your cash, it can't do nothing for you. That's where we are getting to. So it has to be about food.
Let me go to Professor Akitenewa, who is in another studio right here in Arise TV. Prof, what's your take on this lockdown? By tomorrow, Nigerians will expect President Buhari to say something again about a lockdown in parts of the country, Ogun, Lagos, and the Federal Capital Territory. Prof, what do you recommend? Do you think that the lockdown should be extended? Or, as businesses have been arguing, we should try another kind of strategy?
I will ask you just one question. If you are given 2 or 3 devils and you are asked to make a choice, wouldn't you take the better devil? The 3 devils are not good. But the issue now is that you are compelled to take one, only one. Which one are you going to take? Then I ask you this question. This issue of lockdown, as argued by Shike and as directly corroborated by Yemi. Now, which one is better? To be locked down in the house, limit the infections to the house, and not creating additional responsibilities for the NCDC, which is currently incapacitated. Yemi rightly pointed out that, look, the infrastructure is not there. Even the Minister of Foreign Affairs pointed to it 2-3 days ago, when they were talking about the 230 or 250 Nigerians stranded in abroad in Dubai. The people paid for their tickets to come back home, but the aircraft, the flight was rescheduled, in fact cancelled. Why? Because it was made clear back home here that clearance could not be given to the aircraft to land because there wouldn't be any isolation centers to keep the returning people. In other words, the people who are locked in-house now, they are still able to take advantage of the traditional, doses they are given, methods of curing, healing them, than going out with the infections, infecting more people, over which the NCDC will not be able to have effective control. Because the issue now is this. When the Europeans, the Americans decided to quickly fly out their citizens, they have said that, look, we are now going to have a special outbreak of coronavirus. They are not talking about pandemic a la Nigeriana. That's why they fled. And that is what we are now living into, because they know quite well that we do not have that capacity. So it is better when you are making a choice between lockdown at home and then getting every Nigerian infected. We should not allow a situation whereby more than 50% of Nigerians, of the 200 or 201 million Nigerians estimated population, will be infected. When we still have less than 1,000, the capacity is not there. Is it when we now have 1 million infected people that we have that? And now the conspiratorial theories, people who have argued that, okay, there is an agenda to depopulate Africa. What are you thinking about that? Now I have argued that, look, this COVID-19 itself is more of a biological weapon, biochemical weapon. Now the debate is on. I think we should sit down and think more deeply. We must have eyes that see. We must have eardrums that hear. We must learn We don't just need to look at the debate the way it is going on in advanced countries. We must look at the situation in Nigeria. Yemi rightly pointed out now that, look, well, and I'm very happy she made that particular point. We are now in the same school of thought. She now believes that Nigerians themselves, they are disobedient. They are not complying. This is the issue. Government itself is not complying at the state level. So if the government is not complying, now why wouldn't you expect, and I answer your question, why wouldn't you expect a further prolongation of the lockdown? This is the issue. It's a matter of taking a choice between death now and death tomorrow. Let us postpone our death till tomorrow. Let us live a little bit longer. People who do not want immediate solution will now say, don't extend the something. I believe that, look, if there is no improvement, please let the lockdown continue.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Akindele. Yemi, Prof was referring to you. Do you want to say anything to that, or we'll move on to the next subject?
Just so that we're clear, Prof, we've always been on the same side. I just disagreed when you tie citizens' disobedience to extrajudicial killing. So no matter how disobedient a citizen gets, it doesn't give our security agencies the right or the free will to kill them or do them harm.
We do not disagree on that. The issue is that we should, I know our law enforcement agents can be aggressive and they can go beyond their limit. But the issue is that we citizens, we provoke them too. And I'm saying we should not provoke them. That's where we say something.
We provoke them. You're making it seem like because we provoke them, their action is right. It doesn't matter if we provoke or don't provoke. Let them be how they were trained, which is not to kill civilians. Simple. But citizens as well, and I agree with you, we also need to borrow sense if we want to stay alive and obey NCDC's guidelines and protocols for our own benefit. But that does not in any way, shape or form, no matter how provoked, give license to any security agent to kill a citizen.
The agent must not allow himself to be killed. You should not allow to be killed first.
Not allowing yourself to be
Prof,
killed.
No, on that note, we need to take a short break now. Another commercial short break on This Is Live, the Sunday talk show. When we return, the conversation will continue. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Is Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me, I have Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Chike Ogia, former Commissioner of Information, Delta State, and Professor Bola Akintenewa, Director General, Bolitak Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Well, let's move on. We said a lot about COVID-19 and the situation in Nigeria. But the next subject is also about COVID-19 and Nigeria and Nigeria's president. Earlier in the week, leaders of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, appointed President Muhammadu Buhari as the champion that will coordinate the COVID-19 response. The appointment was announced on Twitter by the presidential spokesman, Femi Adesina. The organization held a summit to discuss ongoing efforts at combating COVID-19 by member states. According to updates from the West African Health Organization, as of Tuesday, the confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the region is about 5,774 cases. But 1,616 patients have recovered from the disease, with 147 deaths recorded in the ECOWAS region at the time. Now, President Buhari now named the COVID-19 champion in West Africa. Before now, you will recall that across Africa, he was named the anti-corruption champion. What does this mean for Nigeria? And specifically, the West African countries, following also the other African countries under the auspices of the EU, they're asking for debt relief, they're asking for debt cancellation. And Nigeria is expected to lead that process of request for debt cancellation, beyond what IMF and the World Bank have suffered, and beyond the 20 billion debt relief that the G20 has suffered. Professor Akintenewa, I'll start with you. You are the diplomat, former Director General of Nigeria Institute of International Relations. What does this mean? And what do you think is the real story.
Let us begin with a clear understanding of two concepts: champion, sub-region. The concept of champion can mean two things. Champion in the sense of a recognition of a fait accompli. That is, Muhammadu Buhari has been in a race in West Africa, and at the end of the day, he's leading all others. And we now recognize that he is the true leader, and therefore you give the title as a champion. Then the concept of champion in the context, in the context of a quest, a challenge, you still have the trouble there, and you are now asking Muhammadu Buhari to come and provide leadership in the struggle, all right, against COVID-19. Now, the relevant meaning in this case, I would say, is more of a call on Muhammadu Buhari to come and provide leadership, as we have rightly pointed out, in negotiating international support, international funding, all right, of the struggle against, the battle against coronavirus. If we do not interpret it to mean that way, Muhammadu Buhari will not have qualified to be the champion. You can talk about a country like Ghana that has succeeded in reopening its businesses. All right, the lockdown has been thrown to the garbage of history, at least partly. But in this case, because Nigeria's position in the ECOWAS, not only paying almost about 50% of the assessed dues, assessed budget, but the mere fact that Nigeria has the capacity, it is still solvent enough to be able to provide, in the spirit of the giant of the region, to provide assistance. That's why I think they have appointed our own president as champion to provide leadership. Now, the issue of a sub-region, we need to be very clear on this. Region, according to United Nations, refers to the whole of Africa. Region in the context of the 1991 Abuja Treaty establishing the African Economic Community, Article 1D and E, refers to West Africa as a region. So now, if Muhammadu Buhari is asked to provide leadership in the sub-region, then I am asking myself, what does sub-region refer to in this case? Is it Nigeria and the immediate neighborhoods? Because Article 1E of that particular treaty, Abuja Treaty, says where you have two or more than two member states in the region coming together, that will constitute a sub-region. So for us, for analytical purposes, if we are talking about sub-region now, then we must be clear that it is sub-region in the context of the United Nations. Whereas ECOWAS itself, the whole African Union, has insisted that, look, we should refer to West Africa as a region. Now, in the context of the question you have asked, in this case, where are we? Nigeria, I think, under Muhammadu Buhari as our president, you understand that the ECOWAS has two fundamental problems. ECOWAS needs money every time. When they cannot find solution, they will push the leadership of the organization to Nigeria. Sani Abacha, Badamasi, Babangida, they were 2-3 times, chairman of the ECOWAS.
Prof, on that note, I get your point. I get the point you are trying to make, that West African countries tend to depend heavily on Nigeria. But let me take Chike Ogia's input into this matter.
Well, I think, Prof is like you said, he's the specialist in this, and he said it all. Because to my mind, he's a champion not because we have overcome our difficulties, but just like he said, I mean, Nigeria is how many percent of West Africa? So whether you like it or not, we pay all the dues practically. We are the driving force. The headquarters is here, everything, you know. So it makes sense that Nigeria pushes the agenda and pushes the fight. But hopefully, I'm sure there will be a council of presidents where our president, though the leader of this fight, can now interface with the other presidents and see the ones that have done what strategies they have employed. That, like Ghana, he talked about, we are aware that Ghana is soon going to, get back to work, and they have contained the virus very well. But be that as it may, we still are thankful that that doom prophecy that came out of America when people said we'll have body bags everywhere, because we can't hide those body bags. We have not seen that. Yes, we have community infections now, which is very dangerous. And I think we are getting to the stage where we will now really realize, how far we've gone. Are we getting to the peak before the curve straightens out? That's my prayer. And then get more PPEs, get more medical personnel trained so that we can emphasize more on the treatment, get better synergy between the private sector, the private hospitals. Go and get as many of them as you possibly can.
We need to go now, but yes. I don't know whether in less than a second, Yemi, you would like to put in a word here.
I mean, he's not showing much leadership in Nigeria, so I really don't know what ECOWAS is expecting, but if it's to pay bills, let's see how that goes.
Well, on that note, we need to go now. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. For my entire team and I here in Lagos, it's bye for now. And thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next Sunday.